Namaste. Continuing our series of dream analysis, today we discuss dreams I dare not dream again. We all have dreams once which were so dear to us but have completely forgotten over time. Years later, we even realize that even recollecting those dreams makes us anxious and fearful. It's a very dedicated and a deeply touching area. And to explore this today, we have with us our psychoanalysis consultant, Mr. Himanshu Vaidya. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Sir, what is it? What do you mean when we say dreams I dare not dream again? And how true is that?
Tragically, it is true. We all have dreams that we dare not dream again. And these are the dreams that once upon a time were very dear to us, very pleasant to us. They were reoccurring dreams. Often we used to consciously go into these dreams or consciously participate and change these dreams to our liking. Often these dreams used to come to us for years. And today it becomes so difficult to reconnect with them that we dare not dream them again. Freud talked about a concept which is called the central masturbatory fantasy. And he said that in the erotic life of a person, there are certain fantasies which reoccur again and again. And these fantasies are very important, what he termed as the central masturbatory fantasies. And they give us a very deep insight into the personality of the person. I would like to expand this concept slightly from central masturbatory fantasy. I would expand it to call it central fantasy. And central fantasies occur not only in the erotic part of life, but in every part of life. There are certain central fantasies related to power, certain related to knowledge, certain related to fame. So there are central fantasies in every area of life. And I would extend that concept to the area of dreams and say certain dreams are central dreams. And these central dreams are not one, but there is a collection, a finite collection, a very small number, maybe five, maybe seven, maybe 10 in some people, but a small number of uh, central dreams, and at different ages of our life, different phases, certain dreams become central. And when we talk of dreams we dare not dream again, these dreams were central to us in our childhood and our early youth. And insight into these dreams gives us a very deep insight into the personality, the way it got formed in the formative years. However, it is so painful to recollect those dreams that we dare not dream them again. There are five characteristics of these dreams which we dare not dream again. First, these dreams at one point in time in our life were very vivid. We used to recollect them almost completely, even in our waking state, or at least substantial part of the dream in our waking state. Two, they were very, very pleasant. Three, they were addictive, so pleasant that we would again and again go back to them and repeat them. Four, there was a quite an amount of lucidity where we used to participate in those dreams and change the dreams in the middle of that dream. So there was lucidity involved. And five, the flavor of these dreams used to pertain mostly to relationships, love, sexuality, fame, admiration, and success. These were the typical flavors of those dreams, which at one point were so seductive and so addictive, and now so painful that we dare not dream them again. We dare not dream them again primarily because what we call uh, maturity, what we call pragmatism, what we call growing up involves quite an amount of disappointment and resignation, quite an amount of defeat, quite an amount of frustration. And this creates such an amount of pain that we don't want to dream those dreams again because that tells us what our dreams were and where we have landed in life. And the difference between the two is so high that the pain becomes unbearable. The pain of defeat, the pain of frustration, the pain of all that we wanted but could not have. And this creates a very difficult situation for us. And therefore, uh, everyone has dreams. Everyone has dreams he dare not dream again. And as we age, this box containing dreams that we dare not dream again, this box starts getting filled more and more. And at some point in time, if we want to be psychologically healthy and alive, we have to open this box and go for mourning. Unfortunately, for most people, the mourning is so painful and unbearable that the system keeps these dreams completely repressed or substantially repressed. And this then becomes the core of a mild depression or some psychosomatic problem. And we pay a very large price for not daring to dream these dreams again. So when we say that we have dreams we dare not dream again, it is not an innocent event. It has a very high cost in terms of our psychological health, our self-exploration, our self-development, and our psychosomatic sickness.
So, precisely, why does it happen so? Why do we have those dreams, and what makes them go away?
So we start our life with hope and positivity. Living is, however, difficult. It's not easy. Living is difficult. Life is too much with us, one English poet said, and yet it is true. As we age, we start off in our childhood and early teens dreaming everything that we can. When we see a tennis match, we dream to be the top player of tennis in the world. When we see elections, we dream of becoming the president of something. When we see sports, we dream of becoming the top sports person. When we see a celebrity, we dream of becoming that celebrity. The sky of desire is open and wide. Slowly, as we get out of the college and we get into the real world of limitations, work, and performance, slowly the open sky of desires collapses, narrows down into very specific sky of small desires. And this movement that we call the movement of
Hmm.
so the sky, open wide sky of desires that collapses into a very small sky of small desires.
Hmm.
So what we
Hmm.
this movement of uh, becoming practical, becoming mature, becoming realistic is actually a very narrowing and frustrating movement.
Mm-hmm.
And it is also a movement of defeat, of humiliation, and of disappointment and resignation. And this is what creates the difficulty, that starting from a dream of becoming the president of a country, you end up the search for becoming an assistant manager in a company. And this collapse from the age of 14 or 15 or 16, when you want to become the president or you want to become the actor or actress, and collapsing that into becoming an assistant manager and even struggling to become that, it's a it's a movement of defeat, of disappointment and resignation. And this creates a very important element of frustration and pain, why we don't want to recollect those dreams again, because the difference between those dreams and our reality is so unbearable. Now, if chronologically we look into it, when do these uh, so-called normal dreams turn into dreams I dare not dream again? We see that there are some important points in our life. The age of 7 is one such point. Till the age of 7, we have had hundreds and thousands of dreams, out of which some of them were very, very pleasant to us. They fulfilled all the five criteria of being recurring, of being pleasant, of being addictive, of inviting lucidity, and having those flavors which we like. However, at the age of 7, something happens, and many of those dreams, particularly the dreams of early good object and Oedipal dreams, they get classified as dreams I dare not dream again. The second element happens at around uh, 15 to 16, where another set of dreams, which may have to deal with puberty, Oedipus, homosexuality, defeat, weaknesses, confusion, they also get classified as dreams I dare not dream again. And the element happens, third collection happens, or the third reclassification happens around 25 to 28. And the another element happens between 37 to 40, and the largest chunk happens in the age bracket of 42 to 45, what we call the midlife crisis. In the midlife crisis, for most people, a very large scale classification happens where a huge number of dreams get classified as dreams I dare not dream again. So if we look at how do we have a dream which was once upon a time a pleasant dream, now classified as dream I dare not dream again, it is happening all across the life more voraciously at certain points. And the group age of 7, age of 15, age of 28, age of 32, and most important, the age of 42. 42 to 45 to be more precise. This is the time when maximum number of dreams get reclassified as dreams I dare not dream again. And every time it happens, it creates a core of depression and a core which potentially can cause depression or psychosomatic sickness. And it also kills a part of us. It is said man dies with his dreams. The day we have less dreams and less hope, the enthusiasm goes out of the system. And we become more and more like a routine machine. And this has, to a great extent, some relation to dreams I dare not dream again. More healthy and successful a person is, less is the quantum or the collection of dreams I dare not dream again.
But is this process kind of not, I mean, unavoidable, right? We all go through this. And I think it is more of a defense mechanism of the unconscious mind, which is, I don't know. I mean, these dreams can be classified more as a defense mechanism.
Not dream per se. Dreams do
I mean,
involve defense mechanisms. Dreams
mhm.
definitely involve defense mechanisms. And what you're saying is true that a dream getting classified as dream, I dare not dream again, involves a lot of defense work in order to avoid that pain and the painful memory and to avoid accepting our situation.
So, how is it related to midlife crisis when you said 42 to 45?
Uh, when we look at this specific collection of dreams that we say, dreams I dare not dream again, most of these dreams uh, do get related in some way or the other to the midlife crisis. Not that they are generated at the midlife crisis, but at midlife crisis 42 to 45, something very important happens. What happens is, for the first time in our life, mortality becomes a fact. And the fact that mortality, sickness, limited the amount of time that we have, these things don't remain concepts, they become facts. We also see our parents aging and dying. So that adds to this whole thing. The body starts going weaker, so we realize we have limited amount of time. It's
Hmm.
almost like a sand glass. The sand is flowing out, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. Once
Hmm.
this realization happens, a very realistic evaluation of our life happens of the past and whatever is remaining.
Hmm.
This leads to a lot of things. In some people, it leads to a flourishing of creativity and a sense of urgency. In some people, it leads to depression and higher amount of psychosomatic sicknesses. In some people, it leads to what you said, the stroke of noon and the second innings. That the second innings is very uh, deeply immersed in social service, in culture and spirituality, very different from the first innings. So
Hmm.
different people respond differently to the midlife crisis. From our standpoint, what is important is this. Once we realize in the midlife point, when we look back, that we started with a cargo full of desires, and some
Hmm.
have met, and some have been met, and most have not been met. And
Hmm.
of those that have not been met, most of them are such that they cannot be met even in the remaining of the time. And therefore, the only thing that remains is reality, acceptance, and mourning. And
Hmm.
this movement of reality, acceptance, and mourning is a very, very important movement. If in the midlife crisis we are not able to undertake reality, acceptance, and mourning, it leads to a very difficult situation, mostly into depression, frustration, anger, or some sort of psychosomatic sickness, or at least a reduction in the quality of life, both for individual and for people around them. If we are able to do it, then the second innings becomes very purposeful. And in this context, it is very important to look at this area of dreams that they are not dream again.
Hmm.
At midlife, two things happen. One, for some people, dreams which were accessible get classified as dreams I dare not dream again. So the collection increases. But
Hmm.
for people who are ready to undertake an inner journey and who are sincere about inward exploration, they start recollecting some dreams which once upon a time were very clear and lucid, then for some reason got classified as dreams I dare not dream again and
Mhm.
underwent repression. And now, during the midlife crisis, when you undertake an inward journey, you are able to re-access those dreams initially, partially, and then fully. And this is very important because it tells us what our innermost desires were, what our voice of the heart was at any given point in our life. And this is very important for successful navigation through the midlife crisis. That in the midlife crisis, apart from doing many other things, we also have to engage with this collection of psychological entities, dreams I dare not dream again. This is a very important element for not only successfully navigating through a midlife crisis, because the midlife crisis is a third important psychological junction in our life. The end of Oedipus, 5 to 7 years, is the first important psychological junction, after which
Mhm.
the psyche takes a completely different turn.
Mhm.
Puberty, 14 to 16 or 12 to 14, is the second important junction. And midlife crisis is a third important psychological junction. And therefore, it is not only important just for the present period of time when you are passing through the midlife, but the whole direction and quality of life that follows also is impacted by the way you negotiate out your midlife crisis. And this
So,
element of managing dreams I dare not dream again, establishing the connect and redreaming those dreams so that they get reclassified from dare not dream again to dare dream again, explore them and integrate them and undergo the process of reality acceptance and mourning. And in the light of it, create an idea of good life for the remaining part of it. That becomes a very important element. And this collection of dreams is a very important ingredient in that processing and navigation.
so this makes it very important for us to revisit those dreams, right?
Yes.
Um,
Maitri,
and yes, I was, yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
So then this makes it very important for a person to revisit those dreams or those ideas.
True, true.
And I think even as a part of psychotherapy, I think it's very important for one to touch on these difficult dreams, right?
It's a it's very important to take the help. It's very important to take the help of a psychotherapist or undergo psychotherapy because these processes are extremely unconscious and involve lot of repression and all other defenses. So to undertake this journey all alone is a very difficult endeavor. Our own defenses don't allow us to really explore ourselves deep enough. So I think it is necessary at the midlife point of one's life, at least, to go for psychotherapy and explore this area of dreams I dare not dream again. And I particularly prescribe, not prescribe, but let me say, offer one productive way of doing it faster. And that is to have a psychoanalytically oriented psychotherapy focused on dreams. Just as you have a case history, you have a dream history. That how dreams have been moving across your age and what dreams have you forgotten or not forgotten. So
Mhm.
this dream history is a very powerful tool. This exclusive dream focused psychoanalytic psychotherapy, which few people practice, is also very important to resolve this particular aspect of midlife crisis. One can also do a general psychoanalytic psychotherapy where you
Mm-hmm.
take into account all the issues and this issue also. But then we have to have the luxury of a long drawn therapy and readiness to attend many sessions. If one wants to attend specifically to this particular problem of dreams I dare not dream again, then best
Hmm.
way out is to have psychoanalytic psychotherapy focused
Yeah.
exclusively on dreams, and apart from case history, take a dream history.
The only issue I think here is the person should remember the dreams, right?
Yes, and this improves as you start focusing more and more. The more you
Okay. The
start focusing on dreams and dream analysis, not only do you start remembering your present dreams more, what will happen is many of the past dreams you will start remembering. They will start reoccurring, or at least you will become more aware of that. And if you are lucky and the therapist can go deep enough, uh, we can also look at unconscious fantasies, which have never actually surfaced, and they surface only under the focus and pressure of therapy.
yeah, I think through conscious fantasies you can go to the unconscious ones and then dig deep into it. So
One,
these can Holes.
one,
Sorry.
one way out can be daydreams to night dreams to unconscious fantasies.
Yeah. Yes. Something will lead somewhere, and the idea is to tap your unconscious. So, how does holistic healing and spirituality help in the process?
Spirituality, like Jungian psychology, offers a very positive outlook for the whole of life. So, what Jung calls the stroke of noon at 35, and some people would have a stroke of noon at 42, where the stroke of the noon is like the movement of the sun. The sun rises, reaches the peak, and then starts going down. And the peak is the point of what he calls the stroke of the noon, in a metaphorical sense, of course. And for spirituality, both parts of life, before the stroke of noon and after the stroke of noon, are very significant. So, what spirituality offers is positivity and significance. And 2 points here are very important. First, spirituality tells us that before the stroke of noon and after the stroke of noon, life is equally important in different ways. Before the stroke of noon, life is more outwardly driven, and after the stroke of noon, it is inwardly driven. And both are significant. It is not that just because we have failed to achieve our sky high desires that the whole life is a failure. Spirituality tells us that whatever has happened in life, regardless of success or failure, it has its own significance. So, spirituality gives us the significance of the seemingly insignificant. So, the way of evaluating the worth of life in spirituality is not the same as evaluating the success or failure from a social standpoint. So, you might have had a dream of becoming president of United States. You may be struggling to get a job of 15,000 rupees. But from a spiritual standpoint, that is also significant. At times, it may be even more significant than succeeding and becoming the president of the United States. Not always, but rarely. In general, it is true that there are positions that you can do more in the outside world, and there are ordinary people who can't do much in the world. So there is a difference, no doubt. But in the extreme, I am saying, to put forward the point that the insignificant, the seemingly insignificant, practically speaking, still is significant from a spiritual standpoint. So from a spiritual standpoint, what is significant is very different. It is the essence of experience, not the outcome or the success of experience. And this provides us with the significance of our lives, that whatever has happened is not completely down and out. It has its own importance, even though it may not be successful from a social standpoint. That is one. Two, spirituality provides us with the meaningfulness of the later part of life. That how you can go inwards and transform yourself, and that is even more important than the outward success. Spirituality also gives us the positivity with regard to higher powers or higher beings or God helping us. So spirituality gives us three important things. One, positivity. Two, significance of everything that happens. And three, the action path to take the inner journey and do self-transformation. And fourth, to do something good for society in the second part of it. These are very important elements from a spiritual standpoint, which help us uh, sort of restructure our lives after the midlife crisis, after integration of all that is painful, including dreams I dare not dream of. Coming to holistic healing offers us certain ways out. One, when we are trying to deal with repression, which is
Hmm.
allowing us to access those difficult dreams, holistic healing, particularly Reiki pranic healing, can be used to lighten the load of repression. Certain meditative practices, certain spiritual practices help us access the unconscious content which has got repressed. Certain spiritual practices help us to heal ourselves, and maybe certain dreams which we dare not dream again, the consequences and roots of them get healed even without accessing them consciously. Holistic healing also allows us to heal ourselves and others and do something for society. And often holistic healing groups provide a very good social platform for social activity. So both spirituality and holistic healing provide us not only understanding, positivity, uh, tools, but also groups and path of action to undertake successfully the second part of life after the stroke of death.
So, to sum it up, what is a preferred way or a process of dealing with this? Uh, of course, one you mentioned is the psychoanalytic psychotherapy, but but that is something that you need another person to work with you on. And if you want to do independently something on your own, is of course uh, the holistic healing path.
Yeah, uh,
Uh,
there are three broad ways about it. The
yeah.
best way is to do holistic psychoanalytic dream analysis. Being with a person who is an expert or at least well versed in psychoanalytic dream analysis as well as spirituality. Because in spirituality also there are many different methods of dream analysis. And similarly, there are different methods in East and West with relation to dream analysis. So the best is to be with an expert who knows some methods of East, some methods of West, has orientation, deep orientation in psychoanalysis and some orientation in spirituality. That's the best possible. If it is not, if the best is not possible, go for a classical psychoanalytic psychotherapist. This is the best way out, but this calls for quite an investment in terms of time and cost. Second best option is to go for holistic healing. And in holistic healing, there are many uh, approaches to dreams and many approaches to exploring the unconscious and many approaches to exploring those parts of us, including dreams we dare not dream again, how to remove the repression, how to be able to face them. So we can use pranic healing, we can use Reiki, we can use meditative techniques, we can use uh, cathartic techniques, we can use purification techniques, we can use yogic techniques, we can also use certain Ayurvedic herbs or alchemical processes. All this set of measures are there for self-purification and self-access at various levels. The Vipassana also is a very powerful tool in self-knowing. So all these are methods available to us. The spiritual approach is the third approach, where the method of dream analysis is very different. The outcome of dream analysis done by them is different. Accessing and purifying the unconscious methods are different. What I prefer is to start with psychoanalytic therapy and focus only on dreams. And through that, get into dreams I dare not dream again, build them up, use active imagination as well as persistence and exploration to recreate those dreams. And after recreation, not recreation, but recollection, after recollecting those dreams completely, analyze them, and then actively use active imagination to develop them further. And this uh, psychoanalytic psychotherapy focused on the dream analysis. This is a very important tool, I believe, to engage with and to successfully manage this whole area, very important area of the psyche, dreams I dare not dream again.
Right. Because I was reading somewhere the other day, because you should validate it, but they say dream analysis is even more powerful than the free association that we have in psychoanalysis, psychotherapy, because this is something which is directly tapping into your unconscious,
True.
whereas free association is through your conscious, you reach the unconscious.
Yes.
So,
So in free association, we analyze, we try to develop associations and linkages, and from conscious, we try to go into unconscious. Whereas this dream is a direct message from the unconscious, a direct product of the unconscious. So we don't have to go into the unconscious, we only have to decode the unconscious. The unconscious already has presented itself to us. And my personal experience is that one good dream analysis is better than 10 to 15 sessions of classical therapy.
oh, that saves a lot of time and even money then.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, that was Dreams I Dare Not Dream Again for you. And hope you enjoyed the talk as much as we enjoyed talking and interviewing Mr. Himanshu Vaidya. Thank you very much, sir. But before I forget, anyone who's interested in learning dream analysis, we are coming up with a course. And for details, maybe you can write to hvindia@gmail.com, and sir will of course revert back to you with whatever information you need. So thank you, and thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Namaste.